the second E, if you will, is education. Now, this might be the shortest video, but it's also the longest play. Obviously because, education takes a long time to achieve. And for now, we're just going to talk about traditional education. There's plenty of ways to educate oneself. But I'm referring to, in terms of systemic oppression and racism, sometimes you have to have skin in the game, if you will. I'll use myself as an example. My dental school class, I was the only American black kid that graduated out of 120. Shout out to Temple. 1 out of 120. Black people make up 12% of our population. Doctors, I think it's like 2 or 3%. So the point of that is we have to keep striving for education, and you can't be a judge unless you're a lawyer, right? We have to have people in power that have our interests, and obviously education is the way to do that. Outside of all the other benefits and all the literature suggests, in terms of making money and things like that, you have a better chance in life at doing those things if you're educated. But again, I'm just limited to traditional education, and this goes to other things like trades and electrician, being a plumber. The point is, we need people everywhere, right? One, because we're good at what we're doing. We're skilled, despite what people will tell you. You can go back through history. People are surprised that Barack Obama was such a great president, but people in the know really aren't. We might be surprised that he got voted in, but you'll find that a lot of times any black person you see in power or any kind of position, sometimes they had to work 3, 4, 5 times as hard to get to the same place. I can go on and on. Look at the Tuskegee Airmen. Look how skilled they were in flying planes. So, there's a misconception that we can and all that, but the point is we have to keep striving for excellence. We have to start striving to be educated, because we have to have skin in the game to take care of us. Another point, when I first graduated from school, I took a position, obviously I'm a big advocate for kids and especially underserved populations. So I worked for 5 years in what was deemed one of the poorest zip codes in America. So that was attractive to me for various reasons. One, I wanted to care for the kids that maybe weren't receiving the care that they should be getting, but more importantly, I wanted to be a mentor. And here's a perfect example of that mentorship. I've mentored students that have come on to be doctors and lawyers and things like that, but sometimes just your face and being in the right place, sometimes you're just a role model without even knowing it. And one example I'll give is one time I was coming to work, it was a community center in this neighborhood, and one of the kids came running up to me, a little kid, 5'6", cute kid, came up, was like, "Hey, Dr. Maloney." I'm like, "Hey, what's up, bud? What's going on?" He's like, "I want to be like you when I get older." And anybody that's an adult, that's one of the best things you can hear when a child tells you they want to emulate you, And I was like, "Oh, is that right?" I'm thinking, he wants to be a doctor, he wants to care for people. I was like, "Why is that?" He goes, "Because I want to drive a nice car like you do." So I laughed, and I was gonna correct him, and I said, "You know what? No, that is perfectly fine. If that's what he wants to think, if that's what his focus is, that is 100% okay." Kids are the great imitators. They turn on the TV, all they see, when people look like them. Yes, we had a president, which is great, but you'll see athletes and actors and rappers and entertainers doing fancy things. And of course, those are things that attract people. So instead of correcting him, I said, yeah, you can do that. You can drive a fancy car. So, the point is, not to shut him down or correct his thinking. It's just puts a little seed in his head that there's just one more option that he has when he thinks about life or whatever the things he wants. It's just one more face he can put to it. And there's nothing wrong with that. My grandmother came to the States from Trinidad, and she wanted to be a doctor herself, but there just wasn't the opportunity. So she was hell-bent on making sure her kids attained those goals that she wanted. And anybody that knows Caribbean families, that emigrate to the States, education is no joke, right? My grandmother used to say, you have three choices. You can be a doctor, a lawyer, or disappointment. Thanks, Grandma. But the point is she made no bones about being educated. That was her way of what she wanted to pass on to the next generation. So lots of the children were lawyers. My grandfather was a dentist. His brother was a physician. So I often wonder. I was blessed to have those kind of role models. The same one that this kid that came up to me at my healthcare center. It was maybe ingrained in me and I didn't even know it. So there's an academic piece, there's guidance, but just having people around you as mentors that have done things that don't seem impossible can open up things for kids. And that's really the point, besides doing a service and having skin in the game, is bringing the next person out and being a role model for the kids, to pass and emulate what you do. So, where I practice now currently, it's probably one of the most expensive real estate in North America where I practice. But I treat everybody at my office. I take any kind of insurance, it doesn't matter. And I'm not saying that because that makes me special. But there's a lot of practitioners that don't do that, and a lot of them don't look like me. So I'm always have to be very mindful of that. No matter what you do, I don't want any of my skills or training to make me elite to the point where I'm gonna not include a certain population. In my practice, I have parents that are millionaires and billionaires that have kids that are, immigrants or live in shelters. And guess what? Every single kid that comes in there gets treated the same way. So that's important. I can go on and on through health disparities and, how our people are sometimes mistreated, misdiagnosed, underdiagnosed in healthcare settings. So it's just another layer to consider about education. To make sure people that are highly skilled and trained that look like you, and then something you can strive to, and then people that have your back. So the fourth topic that I like to discuss, which is the T in teeth, is probably the hardest one for me to articulate. And find the words to express my feelings. But the T is for take care of one another. And I like to start with black women. Black women are so amazing. And this is why, a lot of times black women are, and black womanhood is defined by their ability of strength and overcoming hardship. And you can see why, because they're smart, they're the most educated, they're strong, self-reliant, they're nurturers, and they preserve our families. Black women champion all causes, the underdog, no matter what. Any race, creed, sexual orientation, gender, Black women will be there. They're the backbones. But there's a downside to that, and having to be that strong all the time comes on to, carrying a lot of emotions and living up to the label of being strong. And I fear it might be costing them more than we realize. Societal factors disproportionately affect African American women, and a lot of times it has a negative impact on their ability to heal. Black women, since Harriet Tubman, Rosa Parks, they've always been the backbone of everything we do. But they have to be exhausted. They have to be exhausted. For all that they do and carry emotionally, physically, mentally, being parents, mothers, sisters, wives, being professionals, whatever it is they do, they have to be exhausted. And they need the ability to heal spiritually, mentally, and physically. And this is, I guess, where I gear my conversation towards Black men. And I'm going to take out the ones that are doing everything they're supposed to do. So I'm really talking to the ones that are not right now. And maybe I'll focus that on young men. Because we have a lot of broken people, traumas, what have you. And that's one of the reasons I love coaching. I love basketball, and I can draw up a hell of a play, and my teams are very successful. Finished in second place, lost in championship game 3 years in a row. Shout out to my boys. But when I talk to parents, because I coach, elite kids, when I recruit kids, and I talk to parents, I don't really talk about basketball a lot. I talk about 3 things. I talk about academics, the student athlete, we're here to get an education. I talk about raising young men. And then the 3rd thing is basketball. But I'll focus on the second item. When I talk to the kids and the parents, I ask them, how the grades are and what kind of character do you have? Because I think a lot of men now are lacking character because we're lacking 2 important things, which is integrity and accountability. And these are 2 things that I teach my young men. Integrity, doing the right thing when nobody's watching, being a man of your word, being somebody you can rely on. In sports, you're a team. You have to be able to rely on your teammates, right? They have to have trust in you, right? And being accountable. If you mess up or if you make a mistake, man up and own it. My bad. Not that was your fault. Finger pointing. That can degrade people in society in more ways than you can believe. And it's not just sports. And we say, we win as a team, lose as a team. But character building, integrity, and accountability are 3 things that I harp on. The educational aspect. My teams. We've toured Princeton University. Yale University. I have a nephew that's a freshman on a Harvard basketball team. We toured Harvard University, played and beat their JV team. My daughter plays basketball for the #1 academic school here in Canada, where she studies pre-med. So, we want to use basketball and sports as a vehicle for success and education, but the part about the character building, integrity, I think are the 2 pieces that a lot of men are lacking because they've never had to have, be chivalrous and all those things and have integrity, or nobody's ever, forced them to. And accountability, run away from your problems and mistakes and just, blowing things off, dogging people, dogging women, not taking care of your kids and responsibilities. That's all character, integrity, and accountability. So we need more people to show and teach that. I think that's a start. There's no one singular answer to a very complicated problem, but I just wanted to highlight that my honor and respect for the Black woman, and just a challenge to our men to stand up and do a better job, because they're carrying the weight. They're carrying weight that they shouldn't have to. Well, they're doing a great job, but they shouldn't have to carry that weight.